Hey guys, it's Beck here. So I'm taking you through a deep dive into different kinds of lunges that you can utilize in your bar classes. For some of these, I will use a ball as a prop. You can also pop your foot on a yoga block as well if you ever felt like doing that. But yeah, I'll use this for some, and for some we won't. Keep it simple to start. So one of the first lunges that you would incorporate into your bar class would be a 90-90 lunge. So generally speaking, I would come into a 90-90 lunge, which is a open chain movement, or sort of a single leg more of a movement. After I've done a few high back chairs, so forearms sort of just away from, so forearm distance from the bar with your body, and you've got your high back chair. And then once you've done a few of those, and maybe adding, say, 2 layers, which would be, say, 8 to 12 pulses, maybe heel lifts, prances through the feet, heels up and down, 2 to 3 layers, pulse, 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 you get that double leg burn, then I'd be adding some lunges. So that will be 90-90 lunge would be one of the first things you'd do. 90 step back, tap forward, 90 step back, tap forward. Then the next little part of that would be a 90-90 lunge, keeping the foot back and just going down into that 90 lunge and straightening. And then obviously adding layers there, 2 to 3 layers, so pulsing, say 8 to 12 pulses. You can do heel lifts, that could be like your second layer. Your third layer could be a little knee open and close with the front leg, or even the back leg, pulsing with both heels lifted. So that would be your 90 lunge in a 90 lunge position. Then another lunge you can do is adding your floating lunge, where you're taking your hands underneath the bar, little bend in the elbows, and you're going back, and that leg, as you hang off the bar, is extending back. It can either be fully extended or hanging there. And it could be the same thing. You could go into that float with the toes off. And if anyone's struggling, you can go back to this one, just a 90 lunge. So I'm floating and I'm going forward and back. I can add a heel lift to that. And then I can add pulses to that. This is a burner, this one. Lunging in the floating lunge, maybe lifting the front heel, lowering it down, say 8 to 12, extending and bending through the back knee, holding that isometric hold with that front leg. You can then turn all of that into external rotation. So I'd come into that Pilates V, I might lift my heels and go here, curtsy, lunge forward, a curtsy, lunge forward. So this is the exact same pattern, but all I've done is turn my legs out into external rotation, 8 to 12. I'm here, I can go straight, bend, straight, bend, straight bend, exactly the same pattern, and then adding that layer of pulsing, maybe a hold, 8 to 12 heel lifts, holding little knee wraps out and in. And I can turn this one also into a floating lunge. So taking the hands underneath the bar, little V with my arms, little bend in the elbows, but actually hanging off the bar, back and forward. And as I come forward, I might lift the heel. So it's a long leg extending back, or it is an attitude leg coming forward, either just straightening through the front leg or lifting the heel for more intensity. 8 to 12 is a good number of reps, and then I'm here again, and I can do, say, leg lifts in the floating lunge and external rotation, extend and bend, trying to keep that right hip, that floating leg hip squaring forward, and then obviously heel lift and lower. I'm really trying to hang off the bar to keep the burn in the glute. Ooh, that's a killer. So that would be your lunges parallel into floating lunge, parallel, hands under the bar to make it more intense. They can modify and go back to the normal lunges. I've then done the external rotation, and I've done the exact same pattern. And the reason for that is I'm trying to work those glute muscles because your lunges obviously work glutes and thighs and hamstrings. I'm trying to work the glute muscles in those two different directions, parallel sagittal plane as well as external rotation in that transverse plane. Now, to add even more, you've got things such as, they call it a staggered squat, but I find this one quite fun and sort of athletic to do in, say, a bar cardio class, where you just do a tiny step back, like half the amount you do for a 90 lunge, and you take that knee toward that front heel. Say again, 8 to 12. And when you've done 8 to 12, you can pulse there. And I'm doing a slight lean forward. I don't even need the bar. The lean forward's going to really engage the glutes, or fingertips light to bar. And I can hold, I can add a layer such as a heel lift again, a hold and then a pulse like that. And I'm leaning forward and it's a short lunge. A great variation for that would be adding your ball underneath your heel. So you start here and you can see how I'm doing the same pattern, which you don't have to do, but if you want to add that sort of continuity, that flow through your sequence, and you're doing a lot of lunges. So I can go staggered squat like that. Staggered, they call it a staggered squat. It is like a short little stag lunge. I can go straighten and bend and see how I'm leaning forward. And most of the weight is actually in my glute for this one in the shorter stance rather than the thigh. I can pulse. I can do a squish of my heel. Trying to keep this right hip square. It'll want to sink out the left hip as it fatigues. 3, 2. So that would be your staggered squat, staggered lunge, like that with the knee just behind the heel. You then have curtsy lunges that can be done facing the side. So I'm going to take a hip width apart stance. I might turn my feet out a little bit. Curtsy lunge, little tap, curtsy lunge. So if you want to face profile to the bar instead of facing the bar. And it's a great way of transitioning into the glute work. So if you're like, I want to keep doing thighs, maybe thighs and external rotation, going slight diagonal, but I don't want to face the bar anymore. Curtsy lunges are great. I'm here and I can do straight and bend. I can do pulses, same kind of layers, heels lifted, pulsing, or heel down, heel up, keeping the legs still. Then from there, I could add, say, a squat to it. So I could go into a squat, and then a curtsy lunge, and a squat, and a curtsy lunge, or turn the legs out a little bit more and go second position plie, curtsy, second position plie, curtsy. So the curtsy technically being more, the plie technically being more of a squat, but it's a great little way to add them together and flow your class. It's more of a dance kind of feel, or cardio. I can also add, and I do this more in like a bar cardio class, side facing the bar, 90-90 lunge, and you could start here, for example. Then you could go into a squat, and a lunge, and a squat, and a lunge, and then you can amp it up and really go for it and go nice and fast. So you've got your ones facing the bar, which is your 90 lunge, stepping back and forward, up and down. You've got your floating lunges in parallel. You have all of that in your curtsy, and then obviously adding the floating. Side profile, curtsy lunges to a squat, or plie, curtsy lunge. If you want to turn the legs out, it's always really important to get into that parallel leg work and externally rotated. We don't want to just stay in one plane of motion with those legs the whole time. The last one that I'll add to that is a nice lateral lunge, which looks more like a squat, but it's technically a lunge because one leg is sort of the main leg. So in this case, I'm still working my left glute. I've got my laterals, lateral lunge into that leg, and then I can go down and I can pulse, I can add a leg lift, and this is more of that dynamic movement as well. So those lateral lunges. And that can also be added into a different kind of lunge. So you could go into a lateral lunge, stand into a curtsy, a lateral lunge, stand, curtsy. And people will need you to demonstrate that quite a bit before they get it. And then obviously layering it, say 8 to 12. I keep my feet quite parallel. If you're a curtsy, go back and get into that pulsing, adding those layers. If people find it hard for their knees when they're doing externally rotated work, always give them the option to go back to the parallel work. The ball is amazing for your bar classes, as is if you want to add ankle weights, you can add ankle weights for that glute work as well. And that's pretty much it really, guys. So hopefully that helps you a little bit of a deeper dive into different kinds of lunges that you can do in your bar classes. You can do them nice and slow, so it's more of a traditional bar style class, or you can pick up the pace a little bit and turn it into more of a bar cardio. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time.